He said, I don't know who gave him the commendation. Well, he was giving him commendations. While the rest of us were condemning him, he was giving him commendations throughout all of 2020. Asked several times by Kelly if he would like a do-over on any of this stuff. Of course, he's not going to say that he made any mistakes. Don't you regret making Fauci, quote unquote, a star? And he said, well, at that point, he says, I didn't have the ability to fire him. And as I pointed out, he fired the head of the FBI, and everybody was screaming, you can't do that. They're appointed for a 10-year term. It's like, hey, he works for me. I can fire him. And he fired Andrew McCabe as well. It was not even the FBI head. And so that clearly, he fired people if he wanted to. He fired people who attacked him. What he wouldn't do is fire people who are attacking you, who are attacking your home, your children, your jobs, your bodies, your liberties. He would not attack those people. As a matter of fact, when asked about firing Fauci during 2020, this is what he had to say.
And at an April 13th press briefing, Trump was asked why he retweeted a call to fire Fauci.
Today I walk in, I hear I'm going to fire him. I'm not firing him. I think he's a wonderful guy.
Tweet something that said fire Fauci. Why did you
fire Fauci?
I retweeted somebody. I don't know. They said fire. Doesn't matter. I was immediately called upon that, and I said, no, I like him. I think he's terrific.
Yeah, it was Dana Loesch who tweeted out, fire Fauci. And she did that about a month into this nonsense. And that's why these people contacted him. Oh, no, I think Fauci is great. And he did. That was in April that he's defending Fauci. And he continued to defend him, as you saw, throughout the year. What a great job he's done. And then what he did was he put together the campaign ad that I've played for you before, where he had Fauci commending him. Even as he's having the final rallies, and finally did have a couple of rallies in the closing of the campaign. People were saying, fire Fauci, fire Fauci. Well, we'll see about that. He was running ads about how much Fauci loved him.
The president has listened to what I have said and what the other people on the task force have said.
The first and only time that I went in and said we should do mitigation strongly, the response was, yes, we'll do it.
When he suggests, why don't we do this? And I say, no, that's really not a good idea from a scientific standpoint. He has never overruled me.
The travel was another recommendation. When we went in and said, we probably should be doing that, and the answer was yes.
When I've made recommendations, he's taken them.
And then another time was we should do it with Europe, and the answer was yes.
He's never countered or overridden me.
And the next time we should do it with the UK, and the answer was yes.
I never, in the multiple times that I've done that, where I said, for scientific reasons, we really should do this, that he hasn't said, let's do it.
The first and only time that Dr. Birx and I went in and formally made a recommendation to the president to actually have a, quote, shutdown. The president listened to the recommendation and went to the mitigation.
Yeah, there you go. And so, he's telling Megyn Kelly, he says, I overrode many of the things that he did. And you hear in that campaign ad that Trump put together, he did it twice in that ad. He never overrid anything that I told him, said Fauci of Trump. He didn't override me ever. And they used that clip twice in that commercial. And yet Trump tells Megyn Kelly, I overrode many of the things that he did. Well, Fauci says you didn't. Two former Trump administration communication officials told CNN on Thursday these commendations would not have been awarded in Trump's name without his approval. A commendation of this nature would require presidential sign-off. They go through staff secretary for approval, and then the president would need to approve, said Alyssa Farah Griffin, who was Trump's White House communications director. She's now on The View. She's now hates Trump. And so a lot of people just say, oh, that's just somebody who now hates Trump. Why is it that all the people who worked for him closely hate him? Why is that? You might ask yourself. There seems to be a trend here, doesn't it? The people who really know him. She can't say if Trump actually paid attention to what he was approving, but she said, but to claim that he had nothing to do with it is patently absurd. It came from the executive office of the president, as did all of these recommendations that he's talking about and the money that they recommend you do it and you get paid. So all the things that came from the executive office of the president, not just the commendation to Fauci, but the lockdowns, the masks, the social distancing, the non-essential Main Street businesses that we're going to put out of business, all the cronyism, the big pharmaceutical companies and the people, more than half of the money for PPP went to the 5% of the biggest people. All that came from the executive office as well. And, of course, all the fundamental lies about the pandemic that he's still telling people. Stephanie Grisham, who served as the Trump White House press secretary and communications director in 2019 and 2020. And then as Melania Trump's chief of staff into 2021, said, in my experience, like that, nothing like that would ever go out without his knowing it, especially if an announcement was released. And so DeSantis, who's put COVID-19 mismanagement at the forefront of his campaign now, said in the radio interview, Trump is basically saying that he did everything right. And I think that means you should understand that he would do the same thing all over again if put in that position. And that would be disastrous for our country. That's what MAGA needs to understand. Did you like the lockdowns, the masks, the vaccines, all the rest of the stuff? Did you like that? The vote by mail stuff? Because we're still doing the vote by mail stuff. As a matter of fact, Trump doesn't want to pull it back. He thinks he can do a better job of cheating than the other people. Well, I don't know. This is a guy who had 5 or 6 bankruptcies with casinos that he owned. So I don't know if he's very good at cheating. Casino owners you ever see go out of business. Clearly, said DeSantis, Fauci should have been fired. He caused a lot of damage, and not only was he not fired, Trump gave him a presidential commendation on his last day in office. And I think that was the gut punch. It should be, but it isn't. And so it was also interesting at this point in time, and I'm not a DeSantis supporter. There's issues there. I don't support any of these people. And I don't support solving our problems through Washington or through the Oval Office. I think that's a fool's errand. But it is good to have somebody who's going to show us the real Donald Trump. And I hope he'll do it, rather than just, taking the Chris Christie approach of, hurling back bigger insults at Trump than Trump hurls at him.
Making sense common again. You're listening to The David Knight Show.